Amen. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming in. All right. It's good to see everyone. Right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So, good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, and welcome to Pathway to Hope. My name is Constance Gregory of New Covenant Church of Philadelphia, under the pastorate of Executive Pastor Bob Oliver and founding pastors Bishop Stephen Granham and Reverend Hyson Bob Granham. So, we've made some changes, and we were going to speak on loneliness tonight and isolation. But the Lord kind of give us some different directions, given all the things that are going on right now in our world. And so if you're struggling with fear and anger, you're not alone. With all that's going on, like the COVID pandemic and the continuing social injustice, the unnecessary murders, including the murder of George Floyd and the recent rioting, needless to say, a lot of us are probably challenged with fear, frustration, or anger. And the question on the table is, what are these current events that's triggering in us? And what are we producing because of it? So 12-year-old young man named Kedron Bryant has shown us exactly what fruit that these things have produced in him. He produced a powerful song entitled, I Just Want to Live. And we're going to direct you to that on site later on, but we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight and how that came about. And so without further ado, we're going to pray and get started. Father, we bless you. We thank you for your guidance, your leading. We thank you for the Holy Spirit.
Thank you, Lord.
Seeing us through this difficult time, God. We thank you for helping our families, oh God, make the right decisions, God. We thank you for the hedge of protection with all that's going on with the COVID virus, with the rioting and everything else, God, that seen and unseen. We praise you for your direction, your hand of protection. With your guidance as we speak tonight, that people will hear what they need to hear, will be encouraged by your word, and go forth and do what you've placed in them to do, and be who you've called them to be. We give you glory and honor and praise in Jesus' matchless name. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. The song is very interesting, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And tonight we're going to address the emotional response to social injustice and its relationship to anger and fear. And that addresses exactly what triggers in us, what's triggering us as we respond. So, Lorraine, do you have the words to that song? Just a
I
second.
do.
Bring that
I
in.
do.
Before we do that, I'm going to introduce to you let you know that our sister Yulita is not going to be with us tonight. I think she may be on the line, but she has some things she needs to take care of. And also our sister Janelle is home recovering, and we look forward to her speedy recovery and her return to us. And so tonight, Lorraine and I will be co-hosting, and so we look forward to talking to our guests tonight. Our guests that are joining us are Simone Denny, and we lovingly call her Mona. Mona is a member of Christ Haven Worship Church under the pastorate of Bishop Isidore Grant Jr. She served as a youth ministry vice president and also a longstanding member of the fellowship choir. For over 5 years, Mona has been a billing manager for a medical alert company. She is also a Drexel University Dragon. Woo, Drexel! So an Eagles fan to her core. We also have with us, she also enjoys spending time with her family and friends and is passionate about her relationship with God. I don't want to leave that out, Mona. And I heard that when we talked earlier, I heard that passion in there. So welcome, welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we also have with us a young man by the name of Ricky Brown. And from his childhood, he's been a member of New Covenant Church of Philadelphia. He's a graduate of Bloomsburg University. Ricky began his teaching career at a charter school for architect and design He now teaches at the Universal Blueford Charter School, where he has been a big source of inspiration and influence to the staff and the scholars there. With a warm and humorous personality, he has also been able to connect, teach, mentor, and coach multiple community organizations across the city of Philadelphia, including the Sports and Mentoring Students Community, otherwise known as our SAMS community here at New Covenant Church of Philadelphia. Mr. Brown is committed to building connections, serving his community, and inspiring others. Welcome, Ricky.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, guys.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. And so, before we get into the question, I wanted to refer back to the song we talked to you about. The young man wrote, Kidron. It's very, very inspirational. Lorraine, can you share the words with us, please?
Sure, absolutely. This song by Kedron Bryant, which has gone viral and is trending on the internet, is entitled I Just Want to Live. And the lyrics go as such. I'm a young Black man doing all that I can to stand. Oh, but when I look around and I see what's being done to my kind, every day I'm being hunted as prey. My people don't want no trouble. We've had enough struggle. I just want to live. God protect me. I just want to live. I just want to live.
Hmm. Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Mhm.
And so, oh, Mona and Ricky have had the privilege of listening to this song early on. And so, Ricky, my first question is to you. What does this song trigger you? What does it say to you?
This song is so powerful. If you haven't had the opportunity to listen to it, I highly suggest it. It went viral, so it should not be hard to find at all. It's such a powerful song. And I'm a young Black man, so I instantly connected with all the emotions that was coming out of his mouth. First off, even without saying a word, you can see the emotions written all over his face. You can literally feel the hurt, the fear, the anger, all the emotions that we have all felt before. Um, but in this particular case, he was expressing those emotions because of people that look like him, people that look like me, people that look like us as an African American community being murdered by police over and over again, and honestly, with little to no consequences. So I literally can feel the emotions that he was outpouring in his song. One line that actually stood out to me was he said, "We don't want no trouble. We got enough struggle." And ain't that the truth? Because as a Black community, we have so many obstacles as it is in the workforce, owning property or business, creating wealth, and even in our own communities, we struggle with each other. And the last thing we need is police brutality and justice being forced upon us as well. It's very sad, but it's honestly been there since the beginning. So you can definitely feel all those emotions in that song.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Mm.
So, Mona, what's your thoughts on this, the lyrics of the song?
So as I listened to the beginning of it, it represented a plea to let me live, let me thrive, let me see tomorrow. And I think that's really huge for our community because people are being slaughtered, and it's just tomorrow isn't promised to any of us. But that scripture makes it so much more relevant to today because we really don't know if we go to the store if we'll make it home. And then as the song progressed, it sounded more like a declaration. I am a Black man, and his tone changed, and the inflection of his voice denotes that he was proud to be a Black man, that he wasn't apologizing for being a Black man, but he wanted to make sure that he could see tomorrow and to support him. And he wasn't left vulnerable by himself. We are the voice for him.
Awesome, awesome. And let me just pause here for a second. We're having a lot of difficulty. I'm hearing a breakup. So if we do lose connection, please stay with us. Either Lorraine or myself will continue on. So we're not going to let that stop us. The message tonight is so powerful. Sister Lorraine.
Yes, and Mona and Ricky, thank you both for just sharing your perspective. And you have pointed out so many important things with regard to the song and what the lyrics spoke to you. And I'm just wondering for our audience, and what exactly are the specific concerns that you in your generation are having? You identified a few, but I'm wondering if you can just elaborate on the concerns that you have that's causing such frustration and irritation in this younger generation. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely. One of the things, well, there's many things, obviously. There are many things that we're confronted with on a daily basis, whether it's when you get your education and now you're stuck with student loans, so now you're in a form of economic slavery, or if you are trying to buy your first house, like your parents may have bought theirs at 25, 30, but now you're struggling just to live on your own. So things have changed as time has evolved and elapsed. But one of the main things is social injustice is fueling a lot of these setbacks and a lot of things that we're not able to accomplish as quickly as we might like to. Now, we do have people who, beat the odds, and they are an example to us. But most importantly, with this social injustice, what I'm noticing is that we're tired. This generation is so tired of listening to our grandparents say the same stories that we are now experiencing firsthand. It was a story before, now it's our reality. And this generation is saying, no more of this. You're not going to gas us again. Our children won't be gassed the way you gassed this generation and the generation before us. And we are standing on the shoulders of our ancestors, and we're saying enough is enough, too much is too much. We will not watch anyone else leave this earth as if they're poached as in game or something that they had no control over their skin tone. They were born into this. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's not a death sentence. It is a privilege.
Wow. That is incredibly powerful. And I mean, you have articulated it so well, Mona. And as I was listening to you, I was thinking about your reference to the older generation. And, this is a historical thread, a historical context to what you as young adults are experiencing now. And many of the same struggles that you are having, we in our generation and generations before that have experienced too. So although our ideas and strategies may be slightly different in terms or approaches in terms of how to handle it, which we'll talk more about, we certainly understand that pain. And, it brings me to want to speak just a little bit about, the anger that is out there. And first, it's important for us to just recognize that anger is just this human emotion that we all have. There's nothing wrong with being angry and experiencing anger, because that's what it means to be human. But one of the things is sometimes when that anger is being fueled by resentment, those feelings of being offended, of feeling like you haven't been unheard, bitterness, being insulted, you're grieved by treatment that we have been experiencing, that resentment has kind of built and escalated. And it seems like it has morphed again into rage. So, anger has these different components. It has the resentment component, which is the buildup, and it is now again, or I should say ongoing rage. And rage is what we're seeing expressed out in the community. I do want to contrast it though to and introduce the perspective that God has, which is righteous indignation. So we can have resentment. Resentment is usually going to lead to something sinful, something, not negative, usually rage. But God has given us authority to have righteous indignation. Righteous indignation is the only form of anger that comes without sin. And I want to just say that in Ephesians 4:26-27, God says, in your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry, and do not give the devil a foothold. So he's not, of course, saying that we don't have the anger. He's just saying, be careful to not sin. And rage creates the sin piece that sort of diminishes the anger that we're entitled to have. So I just wanted to add that piece, the generational piece, and that context for the anger that I think I'm hearing both you and Ricky speak to. So I want to just ask, Rick, in light of the different types of anger, expressions of anger that I just mentioned, I want you to respond to this comment or this situation. Once a person or a situation continues to make you angry, then they or it can now control your response. What do you say to that, Rick? This statement: once a person or a situation continues to make you angry, then the situation or the person can now control your response. What do you say to that?
I don't 100% agree with that. I would say that as a teacher, I teach elementary school, and I preach and teach daily to be in control of your actions. If you want to talk about an environment where emotions and tempers and temper tantrum are all over the place, go to a K through 6 elementary school. You'll see it all the time. But even in so as children, when they act, they are emotionally fired up, whether it be anger or excitement or fear, they act out on it quicker. We give them a consequence. So whether it's a timeout, they miss recess, we take something away from them to let them know that this action isn't acceptable. As we get older, the consequences get heightened and more serious. So as adults, young adults, all generations, we need to be strong enough and be mindful. And honestly, we're not strong enough on our own. We really need God in that aspect because we've all went off and did things that we regret. I play video games. I've thrown a video controller, broke it, had to deal with that consequence. I've been on conversations on the cell phone, and sad to say, I've thrown that too at times. So being mindful, because we are humans, we all react.
Right.
But learning from those mistakes, learning from those actions, and being more controlled, asking God to help you with controlling your emotions and acting in a godly way. Be angry, but do not sin, as you said, because the consequences grow as you get older. This isn't. You get at a certain age or a certain point where it's no longer a timeout. Timeout turns to prison. Timeout being hurt or murdered yourself. So being mindful of that. Always having that in your mind and asking God to be with you at all times, because we are really not strong enough to deal with all the pressures of life, all the emotions that come with being a human being. I'm a man, and I believe in God with all my heart. And my concern is that people who don't have that same faith, do not have that same source to go to or know where to go, they won't know how to respond in those situations.
That's so on point and so powerful, and you articulated that so wonderfully, Ricky. Thank you. And you made some important points that consequences escalate or elevate as we're older. There's a different expectation in terms of how we respond. And your question or your concern about, well, if I'm know Christ and I know the things to do, and I may be able to manage my emotions in one way, but what about people who may not? That's a very fair and legitimate question, and that is something that we have to ponder in this period that we're in, and look to God and look to His ways so that we can get the direction, knowing that it will take us where we want to go. And I was just wondering, Mona, if you wanted to add anything to what Rick said on that statement. Once a person or situation can make you angry, then they or it now control your response. Anything you want to add?
I think Ricky did a wonderful job of explaining that. I think that, oftentimes we want to blame someone for our actions, but that's not the case. I feel that I believe that people can influence your reaction, but it's up to you to actually act on that reaction. So you can feel things. They can make you angry if you've been disrespected, if you've been offended in any way. And it may cause you to react inside. But whatever actions you take, that's on you. And
I think we lost.
I
I can't hear.
Yeah, I think we did. We'll get her back. Mona was making some excellent points with regard and following up on what you said, Ricky. And I'm just so grateful to hear that you young adults really have a great perspective on, that the yin and the yang of having the emotion of anger and knowing what to do with it, and knowing what not to do. She made a very good point that you have to be careful who and what is influencing
Absolutely.
your response, because that is sometimes the difference between moving from resentment to rage and acting from a rage perspective. And that's a lot, I think, of what we're seeing and what I think is happening. And it's a lot of influence that may not be influence to take us in the direction that we want to go.
If I can, for a second here, Lorraine, just speaking to that resentment, sometimes we don't get to a place where we're raging or angry, or we think we're angry, but that little bit of resentment that stays there over a period of time, a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a few years, actually it can be more dangerous than rage because
it builds.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's something, even as a people, have resented certain things, and not that it's not understandable. We have to get to a place where it does not allowing it to influence us that way that we are resenting it and having something against it. We have to let it go because the person that's hurting is us in a physical way. Not only that, it will cause you to come to a point of rage at some point in time, or make the wrong decision, or mistreat someone or something because of that resentment. And therefore, you're in a position where you're handling God's people not according to what He has called you to do. So we have to be mindful not to carry resentment, because we're called. We definitely are called. But if you have some resentment, you're not going to follow through doing it God's way. And so just had to put that little piece in there.
I agree. I'm wondering, as we wait for Mona to reconnect to us, I'm thinking about conversations that I've had with my son, for example, about responses, how we respond to situations. And one of the things that I was curious about, and I don't know, maybe our audiences as well, is, we often hear about the talk that we have to have with our young adults, especially our young men of color. And so, Ricky, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are about the talk. Can you talk a little bit with us about the talk? Does it help? Should we as parents continue to have the talk, or should we change it? And if so, how?
Let's explain to the audience first what the talk is. So that's teaching our children how to be aware of their surroundings, and how to be aware of the police's presence, and especially if I have all boys, and so we've all given our boys the talk about how to respond when the police are around, and not what not to wear all black, not to wear the hood on your head, things like that. So we give them the talk. So, so what do you think about that, Ricky?
Yeah, so I don't know. I was thinking the other day, and I don't know what age that at a moment when when I was driving with my parents in the back seat, I would point out, "Mom, Dad, there's a cop. There's a cop. Be careful. There's a cop." I don't know what, I forgot. It was at a young age, but I used to point out, watch out. There's a police officer, and I don't know why I did that. I don't know. I can't really remember the cause, but I just knew that was a thing in my community. When you see a cop, acknowledge them, protect yourself, make sure that you're in the right posture because something bad might happen. Those words were never said. It was just a norm. And I don't know when that became a norm in my life, but I caught myself doing it the other day. I straightened up quick. So, so the talk happened to me. I remember I was 16, had my Cinderella license, so I couldn't drive past midnight. I was driving with two of my friends from in Bensalem. We were coming from Franklin Mills Mall, and I remember this like it was yesterday. We got pulled over by an officer, and he said, "License, registration." This was my first time getting pulled over. I was shaking. I remember my hands were shaking, fumbling through my glove compartment. I had everything. He went back to the car, and he came to me, and he said, "I need to search the car." And in my head, I said, So I only knew one word, warrant. I don't, from songs, hip hop songs, you need a warrant to do certain things. I didn't really know law, but I knew a warrant was needed to do that. I was like, don't you need a warrant for that? He said, oh, you have a smart mouth, don't you? Be right back. He went back to his car. He had me waiting, me and my friends waiting there for 30 minutes. He came back. He said, I smell weed. I smell marijuana in your car. Mind you, I have never smoked marijuana. My friends had never smoked marijuana. So at that moment, I was terrified because I knew he was lying and I knew that there was nothing I could do about it.
Mm.
So he said, get out the car. He put me in handcuffs at 16, sat me on the curb, frisked me, sat me and my friends on the curb. He tore up my mom's car at the time that I was driving. Um, and we were sitting there in awe that this is really happening to us, knowing that we've done nothing wrong. Um,
Mm.
so long story short, he found nothing. He said, go, he actually gave me a ticket for my tag on my car expired that month. So he gave me a ticket for that. So I went straight home, dropped my friends off, went straight home, ran to my mom and dad, told them they were livid. But my dad sat me down. He said, things you have to be super careful because of the color of your skin. You're a black male. And that's when that talk happened. He told me about always being respectful and things like that. So that was the first time I had to talk. Fast forward, we appealed the ticket, went to court. Me and my dad walked to the courthouse. The officer and his supervisor were standing at the door, met us at the door, and his supervisor pointed to him and said, don't you have something to say to this family? And then he said, I apologize for everything that went down. Can we please forget about the ticket? Let's just throw this whole thing
Really?
behind us.
Really?
Wow.
And in my head at 16, I'm like, no, I'm telling everything, I'm telling the judge. And then my dad pulled me in the men's bathroom of a courthouse in Ben Salem and said, that is grace, that is favor. You want to show them grace, favor, he gave me this whole pep talk about love. And at the time, I was not trying to hear it. I was like, Dad, no, we
Wow.
got him, do this.
Yeah.
And he was like, no. So we went to the judge. And then even the judge said, we heard you want to drop all the whole thing. Are you sure you want to do that? And I looked at my dad and then I looked at you, I said, yes. And he called us up to the stand and said, you don't have to, you can actually, and we were like, no, it's okay. We want to show grace. And then, so from then on, that was my talk moment. That was my reaction to show grace in times of when you're being treated unjust as well. So it was a huge lesson that shaped how I interact with law enforcement or anyone who does me an injustice. Show them love, show them grace, treat them how I would want to be treated. So they cannot say that I overstepped or I did something wrong in that situation. Make sure myself is right.
Okay. All right.
That's amazing.
It is
What a
amazing.
testimony, Ricky. What a testimony. What a testimony.
So I have a question. Do you think parents should continue to talk? I mean, given all that's going on now, does it work? Do you think it works today and should it continue it?
I think more than the talk is good because you had that in your head, but the experience was the thing. The you kind of had to you can say everything to someone, just like it's kind of like reading the word. You have it in you, and so that comes out of you when you're in that situation. So I definitely think you need to teach young adults, young Black adults, young females, the right thing to do, and just pray that it comes out in them in the situation.
Excellent, excellent. Just want to remind the audience, if you want to have a question or you want to make a comment, please feel free to do so in the chat room. Send a question and we'll find it and we will ask the question to our panel. Also, if you want to send us an email at p2hministry@newcovenantchurch.org. Again, it's p2hministry@newcovenant.org. Please send us a question or have a concern and we can give you a call later on. Please do that. We're going to continue on. So, Mona, Lorraine, and Vicky, all three of you.
I'm here.
You made it back. Thank
I'm
you.
back.
Glad you made
It's
it back.
raining cats and dogs over here.
Here too, so glad you made it back.
Yes.
But from a standpoint of a woman, of mothers, and from the place of a son, as you listen to, I want you to listen to what Kidron's mother, Anita, said. She said to her son, when I heard Mr. Floyd call out for his mother when she was on the ground. She said, as a black mother, that really hit me in a deep way. I began to pray, and I said to God, God, this world needs help like never before. I want my son to know how to pray and what to pray for. I need to be able to give my son wisdom that's going to help him to be able to live and to be confident in this world. I knew that it could only come from you, God. So those were her words. She prayed that, and she, as I told you earlier, I think we told you earlier, she actually wrote the lyrics to the song and gave it to her son. And as she prayed this, God gave her those lyrics, and she gave them to her son. She told him to go pray about it and then see what God would give her. So more, she could have been angry with what she saw on the television in terms of what's happening to Mr. Floyd, and she was angry, and she was afraid for her son. And so she gave him the talk of over time, but she was able to help him to identify something in him. And so I'm interested in how this resonates with either of you. She was angry, she was afraid, but she was also able to help her son to identify what was in him so he could respond to that incident. So I'm interested in hearing from you. How was she able to use his gifts and help him to use his gifts to speak or to encourage others? How was she able to get past what she was feeling to help him to be a blessing?
That's a great question. And I feel that the Bible, it talks about your gifts will make room for you. And I believe this mother had that principle and understood that as long as I can keep him alive so that God can see, even if she doesn't know God, we don't know, but
she did. She's a Christian.
So that God can see, yes. So that God can see, I give my son.
Uh-oh. So Ricky, why don't you stay in and answer until she comes back? We'll get her back.
Okay, yeah, no problem. Could you repeat the question? I'm sorry,
I certainly can, not a problem. This was from the young man, Keitron's mother.
Mm-hmm.
She said that when she heard Mr. Floyd call for her mom.
If you gave him, I'm causing him, and I'm telling.
1 second. Mona, are you there?
She's back. I think you just muted yourself.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Uh-huh.
So I was just saying that, this mother gave her son back to the Lord, and the gift that he has that God bestowed upon him, she let the world see it. And that cannot be silenced. That cannot be overlooked. And then also, if you put your trust in God and the faith that you have in him, what he will do is he honors faith, because he said, will I find faith in the earth? And he found it in that mother. And he found it by her example of, I'm going to give this gift to the world that you gave to them.
Awesome. It's awesome. So Ricky, I'm going to repeat it for you a little bit. Thank you so much for that, Mona. Thank you. So she said that as a Black mother, it really hit her in a deep way. And she began to pray and ask God, and said to God, the world needs help like never before. I want my son to know how to pray and what to pray for. And she needs to be able to give her some wisdom that's going to help him to be able to live and be confident in the world and know how he could be a blessing. And she only knew that could come from God. So she was able to talk to him in light of what was going on. And the song that we talked about was a result, was a fruit of how she handled that. So my question to you is, how was she able to get beyond the hurt, the frustration, and every time things happen, we talked to our family about how ugly it was. How was she able to get beyond all that and have him to produce that song? What do you think went into that?
Yeah, so how did she get beyond it? She gave it up to God. She didn't carry it on her own. She knew that I cannot carry this. I cannot fix. This is something I can't hold. And she does what a lot of us do, is give it right to God, give it to the source, give it to the Father. And in that, he was able to use his gift. She was able to walk in her purpose and in his purpose in doing that. So God was lifted up in that moment by them walking through their purpose, giving the issue, giving the concern, giving the fears back to him, and he used them to give him glory. So that was really powerful.
Are you saying to me that their focus was not on only on what happened? Their focus is on what God would do through them.
Yes.
Okay, awesome,
Yeah.
awesome, and it had to be because they couldn't change what happened. They couldn't change how people were responding, but what they
Yeah.
could change is how they responded to it. Yes. Thank you, thank you.
That's
Right.
awesome.
Mm-hmm.
As I'm listening to both Mona and Ricky just share their insights, which are really just so wonderful. I'm in the mindset of a mother, and my son is 20, soon to be 26 years old, and I know that as parents and grandparents, we share a lot of the frustration and or concerns that are being expressed by the young adults and some of the fear, if we're being honest. And that's why we understand, those of us who are looking to the Lord, that we cannot be with our children all the time. We cannot tell them what to do minute to minute. And so it is the train up the child as he should go. And as you pointed out before, Mona, that fruit comes back. And I think that's what we saw in Kedron Bryant's mother. She has prayed, her and her husband, and the fruit is what we're seeing that is coming up from out of this young man. And I believe that's the standard. But I also want to say that even if for those who come to know the Lord later in time, we know God redeems the time. So there's no time that God cannot intercede in our lives and help us to make those right decisions in those right directions, and to show us our gifts and our talents, and to have us use them for his glory and our good. So I am just delighted to hear young adults who understand those principles and try and ask God to help them apply them in their everyday life.
Absolutely. So it's been said that there's two kinds of people in the world: those who watch what happens and those who make things happen. Now, we heard your bios, both of you, and so we know that you're not sitting and watching and waiting for things to happen. We know that of you. So just in your own surroundings, in your own world around you, and when you're looking at Pedron and his mother as an example, and there's many other examples around us, how do you see yourself being a part of change in light of all that's going on? How do you see yourself being a part of change?
I would say just living my lifestyle in a way that honors God, that people can see. I'm fortunate enough to be in a position where I have a lot of influence as a teacher. I'm around hundreds of youth a day, and just walking the way that I know how, in love, and in God and grace and truth, just being an example. I'm not a man of many words, but I do like my actions to reflect my beliefs. So even in times like this, continue to have faith in tough times, and expressing my faith, that even though things are bad, continually to say that I trust God and know things will get better, making people know that the way I live is the way I believe. So just being a hope and inspiration just through my lifestyle.
It's been inspiration in your lifestyle. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Ricky. Mona?
Yes, I'm going to say I'm a very modest person, but I know who I am. And I think that knowing who you are and being confident in who you are, you actually have the ability to change an atmosphere. And you're able to speak life to things that seem dead or may even be dead. But I've learned how to speak life to dead situations. And, certain things that have happened in my life, my father was very ill, and the doctors told me that he was going to die. And in all the craziness, God had me held down, and he said, "I'm with you." And so by that, I spoke to the doctors in confidence in God and said, "He's going to live, and you're going to do everything you can to do that." And there were nurses, and there were doctors, and there were other people who were coming to see him. And as a result, now the doctors and the nurses know that there is a God. And so by doing that, you have to stand on what you believe, even if it looks like you're standing by yourself. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do. People who change things sometimes have to walk alone, and they have to look odd and strange. and you can't be afraid of that. And you have to go head on into it. But what you know is that God has given us an armor, the helmet of righteousness and a breastplate and belts and everything. He's given us everything we need and the word of God and the shield of faith. But he's given nothing for your back because you are not surrounded. You are strong to handle whatever it is that comes your way, and you can create change just by being you.
Yeah.
Amen.
Wow.
I think we need to remember that cycle of things happening like that never stops. It happens while we're Christians, and as we mature Christians, as we're maturing on, God will use us as
Yes.
as people can watch what you're going through, or watch as you're going through. As
Mhm.
you said, it's important that we learn how to stand, no matter what's happening, coming from the right, left, back, or front, even if it affects our emotions. We have to learn how to stand and trust that God is the God that He said He would be in our lives. He got our back.
Yes.
So I so appreciate what you said. Thank you so much. Thank you.
As I'm listening, you two are clearly part of the Samuel generation that God has called for a time such as now. And the wisdom that he has given you and the insights are the things that we believe that the Lord is calling for in a season such as this. And I was wondering if you two could speak to what things you might say to people that you are encountering who are frustrated, angry, feeling hopeless, feeling a lot of rage, expressing it. What would be two things or some things that you would say to them that you would to help them to make change that can move in a positive direction in a productive way? What things would you say, given that you're part of this Samuel generation and that you are called for a time such as this?
I'll start off, Ricky, I guess. So I'm going to say that I was angry, and as long as I've known the Lord, and I'm human, and I was very, very angry and just saddened by all that had happened. And honestly, I had to go and self-reflect and make sure that what I was saying wasn't.
No worries. We know that this is a powerful session tonight, and that's why we're having some of the challenges. So, Ricky, can you step in and answer a question until we get her back?
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was actually agreeing with her. I will first say I understand. I'm angry too. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm confused. Um, and I don't have the answers. So I'll start with being transparent. We're in this together. I'm on your team. I'm your brother. Um, and we're going to do this. We're going to walk through this together. But be careful how you deal with it. Again, be angry, but don't sin. So like, don't take it. Don't respond right away, right? So don't respond in anger. So take a step. Mona says self-reflect, which is huge. Take a step back. Socially, a lot of us participated in a Tuesday blackout yesterday, and where we all just stopped posting on social media unless it was really, really important. Took a step back to reflect, spend time with our family, realize what's important, take the energy of anger and put it into brainstorming solutions. Take this as the kids say nowadays, take that same energy and put it into trying to solve the problem. It's a lot going on, right? One day you're angry, one day you're sad, but just acknowledging the emotion, right? Acknowledging that's how you're feeling, but try not to act in that emotion. Everything you do, you want to act out of love. So why am I doing this out of love? Am I doing this for the love of my people, right? Is this going to benefit us in the long run?
Absolutely.
Am I loving my neighbor? I don't want people to get things confused. I'm probably going to go off tangent. I don't want people to confuse the message, right? We're not anti-police, right? We're anti-police brutality. It's we're not trying to attack, and we don't want people to get the message confused with our reaction. We don't want to
Powerful.
have people think that we're or against all police or all people that are not Black. We're against injustice, and that's two different things. So just take a step back, breathe, right? Take the energy of anger, transform it with God, and put it to a solution.
One of the things that I'm hearing, Ricky, which I think is so important that you were saying and that Mona began speaking with, is the importance of having a standard by which you're governing your own behavior. And we talked a little bit before about influencing, and so that you are becoming and you are a model for how to respond, thinking first and then reacting. And you mentioned love, Ricky, and Proverbs 10 and verse 12 says, hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers all wrongs. And it's a difficult concept if it gets mixed up like, well, you're just being you're letting people walk all over you. But if love is what's generating your response, grace will come along with that. Mercy will come along with that. Understanding, moving toward those decisions, those types of ways. And that's where there's a bridge that we're trying to bring. I do want to say also that what makes it, I think, a challenge that I've seen, and I believe young adults are seeing, is that when you have people who come in with the wrong motivation and the wrong intention, mixing in with those who have the right motivation and the right thing, the message gets muddled, and then it looks all negative when it wasn't intended that way. So that is why we have to have more people who can guard themselves and have a standard for their behavior and reaction, because there's always going to be people who will infiltrate and come in and make it look like something that God did not intend, and it muddles the message and it makes it look like something that can never be fixed. And now you're focusing in on that instead of the bridge that was potentially there to be to help people to cross over. So I just wanted to add that piece in. Ricky, you started speaking to it, and I certainly hope Mona will be able to come back and join us in this. There are so many different things. You mentioned some things that you would say, which is understand, make sure that you are human, and you would be communicating that to other people, and the other things that you pointed out. There are some other things that we'd like to kind of explore. What are some of the other things that people can do to just change this very incited and insightful season that we're in? What are some things, practical things that we all can do and young adults can be take a part of? Do you have any ideas of some strategies, some things that people can do? And if so, can you just share with us some ideas that you have?
Sure. I think never, more than ever before, the dialogue is being had, first off. I'm seeing more conversations about injustice and racism than I've ever seen because of this. I know we've had situations in the past, but this feels different. And the dialogue, I see more coming together. Like I saw today, there were protests in all 50 states for the first time. And everyone is coming up and speaking about this. As sad and angry and wrong it was, it's bringing a unity that I haven't felt in a very, very long time. So just having the dialogue and speaking up, not just African Americans, but people of all colors, all races, and all ethnicities. So first off, having a dialogue and holding yourself accountable, checking yourself. What do I do to for the cause, or what do I do that hurts our cause? Being reflective on that. Am I a part of the problem, or am I helping the problem? Just having the dialogue. I've seen that more than I've seen ever right now, which is encouraging in a time of time like this.
Excellent. Excellent. So I'm hearing that you have to use the platforms that are out here and build on those platforms, the accountability. And I came across something that I believe will be helpful. It's we intend to post it on New Covenant website. It's a toolkit that was developed by former President Barack Obama, and it addressed the protests nationwide, especially since we're dealing with these current sequence of events. And this toolkit is designed to help sustain the momentum to bring about change. So it's some actual practical steps that we all can take to keep the momentum going, but with structure and with good examples and good ideas and good connectivity and bridges. So we're hoping that will be helpful to us all as we go forward during these particular times. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Mona, did you have any something you want to share in terms of things you would share with young people in the world, things that you can change?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the biggest things is to change your mental state, because a lot of times we do what we have to do, but we rarely do what we want to do because of our external factors that are, challenging us. And so what I want to challenge people, young people specifically, is to change the narrative of the society, change it in the way that when someone else looks at you at that age,
Yeah.
they look up to you and say, you did what you wanted to do, and so can I.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome. So, there's scriptures. First, I want to speak to people in the audience. Please feel free to send questions or comments in chat. I saw a couple of comments over there that were encouraging. Sister Baldy said, "True justice on the right and peace on the justice on the left and peace on the right." So thank you for that. So if anyone else have any questions, please feel free to send them to the chat room. And if you have questions you want to ask us later on, you can send them to p2hministry@newcovenantchurch.org. But as we go on, the Bible has over 300 scriptures that speak to anger and social justice. Over 300 scriptures. So apparently God thought that speaking to anger was a pretty important thing. The few scriptures we want to share tonight that were mentioned earlier, one was Ephesians 4:6-27. In your anger, do not sin. Do not let the sun go down while you're still angry. Do not give the devil a foothold. And we need to be very careful about that, because sometimes our being angry is someone who made us angry gives us an excuse to do what it is we want to do or to return the favor. So the Bible says to do not let the sun go down in your wrath. Do not let the devil give you a foothold to do something out of your anger. Proverbs 10:12. Hatred stirs up conflict, but love covers all wrong. So we want to make certain, I think you mentioned this earlier, Ricky, that we want to love as opposed to walking in anger. Love covers the multitude of sins. That's so love is more important, more powerful than any anger, any hurt that has been done to you, or any anger you may have. That responding in love is powerful. God does it for us every single day because we miss it. We miss it. All of us are good at missing it, but He responds in love. And so we're called to do the same thing. And then James 1:19 is one you want to share. My dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Some of us tend to be short patient because of our personality, or tend to think we're justified in getting angry. Let's rethink that thing, because that's not like Christ. And so in doing that, we're not pleasing God. And I think our desire is to please God. Our desire is to have a stronger character. So we want to make sure we take note to speak slow and just be slow to speak and slow to become angry. And the very, very last one is Proverbs 23. It's too late to it is one's honor to avoid strife, but every fool is quick to quarrel. So we don't want to get in quarrels. We want to avoid the quarrels. It's an honor to avoid strife. And so as we move on, Sister Lorraine, you had something else to share?
I did, and I know we're coming close to the end of our hour. It has just shot by, but I think it would be helpful and really important for us to talk about the move of God that we see unfolding even right before our eyes. And there has been many shows of unity, of love in the media recently. My heart is full when I see it, because it's that bridge that I know God is trying to take us over. And so, as we talk about social justice and our emotions and all of these things, God has begun that process of turning hatred and misunderstanding into compassion in these acts. And so one thing that I've seen is that people, all the races, have been protecting the target stores from the looters. People are kind of joining together. The chief of police have been removing their helmet and their riot gear to walk along with people. And so Mona and Ricky, can you give an example of what you've seen? What have you seen that has shown that this bridge or this unity is possible as we're going through this time of turbulence? Ricky, can you speak to what you've seen? Can you give us an example of something that you've been observing?
Yeah, so I'm very active on social media. So I've been receiving calls from people who I haven't talked to since high school, to texts and calls, reaching out to me, mostly that don't look like me, right? Saying, hey, I just want to let you know I love you and I support you.
Wow.
I'm here with you. I see what you're doing, and I'm on your side. And encouraging messages like that make it so much easier daily to just go through life. Seriously, people I haven't heard from in 10 years, since graduation day, finding my contact information, reaching out to me just to let me know that they're standing with me. People I have in community. So that just means so much to me. And I see that happening all over. Like I said, the whole country protested for the first time ever, each and every state. So you can see it. People. It's two sides, really. There's no one in the middle of this. There's no one in the middle, and it's leaning towards the side of change. It's leading to the side of justice, and it's leading toward the side of love. So it's been very encouraging.
Wow, thank you. Mona, can you give us an example of what you've been observing or what you've been seeing that's showing some bridges?
Yes, I noticed that the awareness is heightened. Specifically, I had someone, a boss of mine, who spoke with me and said, I didn't believe these things were happening. I didn't believe they would shoot someone in cold blood. I didn't believe it. Even though I heard it, I didn't believe it. So now with technology, the awareness, you can't escape, and you can't be blind to certain things that are happening in the world today. And what happened was, he said, now I see, and this is not okay. And that resonated with me because this is something I didn't have to preach to someone. I didn't have to argue with them. I didn't have to debate with them. They accepted it once they saw it. And it just warmed my heart that there are people not of my race who care about my struggle. And that made everything so much better for me in that particular day. And so I am seeing that all over.
Thank you so much, Mona. Thank you both. There's so much more that's happening. God is moving. And as we move into our final moments of this Pathway to Hope segment on social justice, there are a takeaway or two that we'd like to leave you with, that you can realize that your mind can only focus on one thing at a time, either positive or negative. Which one will you decide? What are you going to put your focus on? Constance, can you add one or two to that as we close out?
Certainly. And as we think about this, realize you can't change another person. As much as you see things that people are doing, and as much as you may love them, you can't change another person. The only person who is responsible to change is you, ourselves, and becoming the who that God has intended and gifted you to be. That's a responsibility. In doing so, we speak volumes to the hearts and the souls of others. That brings about a change. And we saw that with our young man, Brian, Pedron Brian and his mother, because he walked in, he was obedient to his mother. He walked in the gifts that God gifted him with. And he changed, he touched the hearts and the souls of so many people. Millions of people have already watched him sing this. Men, Lorraine, you had a testimony. Your husband came to you, right? Talking about the song in tears, even saying so. But I mean, even my boys were listening to it and said, "Oh yes," and they were talking about it, and they had passion about what he was saying. And he's 12 years old. So, in your responsibility in becoming the who that God has intended for you to be, and walking in those gifts, speaks volumes and brings about a change in so many people. So, as a reminder, please see us on YouTube tomorrow. We have a rebroadcast of this program, so please check in. And also, if you want to ask questions and maybe want someone to call you and help you with something, because we are focusing on negative emotions and how to get beyond those things, please email us at p2hministry at newcovenantchurch.org. Again, that's P2H Ministry at newcovenantchurch.org. Again, it's been a blessing. We hope it's been a blessing to you. And we thank you and we'll see you in 2 weeks. God bless.